Good evening, welcome to Headlines. I'm Maria Rodriguez Abalde. Among all the external powers involved in Syria, there are two main losers, and they are big, Russia and Iran. Now both are, for the time being, largely out of the picture in Syria. To talk about the new geopolitical scenario, with us Mehmet Agutsu, former senior diplomat from Morocco. Thanks for your participation in your program. So, Mr. Agutsu, Iran and its regional strategy in ruins. Syria was the centerpiece of Iran's once powerful axis of resistance against Israel and the United States. So, as another side effect, are these two countries winning also?
Well, I think the picture is still not very clear, but as you said, the winners and losers are more or less determined. Iran and Russia are the major losers, especially Iran, because for Iran there was an axis of resistance, starting all the way from Yemen, then Hamas in Israel, in Gaza, and then you had Hezbollah in Lebanon, and Assad sitting in Damascus. What happened is that Israel, over the past few months, one by one, wiped out almost all these key allies of Iran, proxies in many ways. And the last falling part was Assad. Nobody expected that in 12 days, the Assad's Baas regime will be collapsing. And even Iran was not expecting that. And therefore, now what happened is that Iran had to withdraw all its military assets, already from, of course, Lebanon, then Syria now, through Iraq, back to Iran. And there are domestic troubles in Iran with which it has to deal with, very unsatisfied public and discontent among young people. And there is also talk of Israel targeting Iran next, because what happened is Iran's air defense has been more or less destroyed as a result of retaliatory strikes by both sides. And Iranian missiles were not as effective as we thought it was. And if Israel and the US, when Trump comes to White House on 20th of January, whether both of them act against Iran, that's going to be the last bastion of anti-Western movements in the region. Of course, Iran is not like Libya, Syria, or Iraq. It's not an easy target to handle, but it looks that there is some plot, some game plan already developed, and Russia had to give in because it had its own troubles in Ukraine, plus Assad forces were not fighting for their own country, and Russia invested so heavily. The only concern they had, of course, was two bases they have, one air base and then the naval base in Tartus. And probably there was an agreement brokered by the US and Israel that the Russian bases will be untouched, at least for the time being. And there is some sort of deal still going on. We cannot rule out altogether Iran and Russia are lost altogether in Syria, because they have their infrastructure still. And we have to be careful about it, because also the new regime in Damascus is not so resilient and strong yet. And because there are so many problems, Israel destroyed all the military assets in Syria, so that the new regime, if they want even, cannot be posing a threat to Israel's security. Israel also occupied the remaining part of Golan Heights, and there were talk that the Israeli army came very close to Damascus, almost 25 kilometers. And Turkey, perhaps, is another subject that we can discuss, where Turkey stands. Is one of the winners probably in this game. But there are also serious risks for Turkey, especially with regard to PYD controlled area on its border, which Turkey considers to be an extension of PKK terrorist group, whereas the US is arming it, training it. There is almost a 75,000 strong PYD Kurdish army created already. And is there going to be a conflict also between HTS in Damascus and also YPD on the Turkish border? So there are so many question marks. I think the key challenge, in my opinion, is power sharing, resource sharing, because most of the oil and gas assets are on the Kurdish region, almost 70%, and how the infrastructure will be rebuilt. This is what people need, because now they cannot have electricity. I mean, almost 1 or 2 hours per day they have access to electricity. Water is not available, and roads have been destroyed, and food security is a big problem. So first internal struggle will be handled, then time will come, not too far from now, how to reconstruct, who's going to finance it, what role the Arab countries will play as well,
Yeah,
the Gulf nations especially.
We are going to talk about that later on, and also about the proxies. But also Iran say that it wants to maintain relations with the new Syrian government, but that opposition groups' approach towards Israel would be crucial. Can we expect new relations between Iran and Israel, or that is impossible?
Well, between Iran and Israel, as I said, there is going to be a confrontational relationship. But between new regime in Damascus, I think there is not one group, as you know, HTS is just one of them, but you also have the Syrian National Army, Syrian Freedom Army forces supported by the US, and you also still have Alawites somehow, and the Kurds. I don't think that it's going to be easy to have a power sharing which will be accepted by all. Also resource sharing, especially oil, gas, and water, Euphrates water. And therefore, in the near future, I think that there is going to be much love between Damascus and Tehran. And therefore, but on the other hand, of course, Iran would like to keep some sort of relationship. They lost already the corridor leading to Hezbollah in Lebanon. This is a big loss for them. Hamas lost. The only proxy now Iran has in the region are the Houthis in Yemen. God knows what will happen to them. And now I think when Trump comes to power, he's going to also, I think, put a lot of pressure on Iran with regard to uranium enrichment for the nuclear facilities. Then Iran also complains that Azerbaijan in the north is in a strategic partnership with Israel, whether it's going to be a threat or there is going to be some new sort of rearrangement, reconfiguration of the regional powers. So I think life will be very, very tough for Iran, surrounded by countries which are not considering Iranian regime friendly, and domestically unrest will grow bigger and bigger if the sanctions will be stepped up by the US and the European Union in return for clamping on the nuclear uranium enrichment in Iran. So there are so many question marks still, and my biggest concern is actually, first, domestically, how Syrian opposition will handle the governance of the country effectively, providing the basic water, electricity, food, and what you need in infrastructure. My guess is that I think federalization is going to be a tough bargaining between all the warring factions, and the risk of Syria being fractured into mini states. Thus, it's not going to be a threat to Israel's security, but it's going to be a serious threat to Turkish security, actually, because now HTS is considered to be as a terrorist organization. Still, it's not removed from that list, internationally seen as a terrorist organization. Then Turkey also considers PYD as an extension of PKK, as a terrorist organization. So two terrorist organizations are now running Syria. It is a very serious threat. But on the other hand, of course, hosting more than 4 million Syrian refugees in Turkey provides a great deal of goodwill and support. And so we have to see how this is going to evolving, because also mind that the European Commission President Ursula will be coming to Ankara. Then also US Secretary of State, outgoing Secretary of State, Blinken will be in Ankara. And I'm sure Turkish and Israeli intelligence talking to each other, despite the cold atmosphere in relations, because even just before, a day before the HTS started its attack, the Mossad head was in Ankara talking to Turkish MIT head Ibrahim Kalın. So it's the realpolitik. And there are so many chips now being kept in hand. Then also don't forget that UK, not only US and Israel on the Western side, UK has been a very smooth and effective operator in Syria through its diplomats, also intelligence operatives and civil society organizations which work in Syria for a long time. So now I think the question is if Iran and Russia are totally excluded from Syrian geography, and what role Turkey, Israel, and Western countries and GCC Arab countries will be playing. And whether we are going to forget altogether the Palestinian issue, because this issue has been really seriously neutralized because of Israeli attack.
Yeah, let's come back to the Russia issue, because Iran lost its main ally, and after Russia has taken Assad as a refugee, could we expect new sanctions against the country?
Well, against Iran, I think there is going to be new sanctions coming. And more importantly, my concern is that it's not only economic sanctions or monetary sanctions, and probably we will expect a new series of attacks from Israel, supported by Trump's US when he comes to power. So I think this was part of a great game, greater design in terms of redrawing the geographical and ideological borders in the Middle East, starting from Afghanistan all the way to Morocco, where I am right now. And therefore, I think the next target, I'm afraid, will be Iran. Therefore, Iran is very much concerned. They are not only concerned about the coming sanctions from the West, more importantly, whether there will be an effort trying to dismember Iran's territorial integrity through attacks and leading to the downfall of the current regime. And therefore, countries in the region, including Azerbaijan, Turkey, Iraq, and Pakistan, will be very much concerned about the ramifications of such a possibility. And therefore, not only the sanctions, but we have to worry about some hard actions coming from Israel and the United States against Iran.
Yeah, Mr. Mehmet, also Iran lost its capabilities through Hamas and also through Hezbollah. The Houthis are left, and everything indicates that is the Israel's next step. What will happen in the south of the region?
Well, now Israel will feel more comfortable having defeated Hamas in Lebanon, and now removed also major threat in Syria. Probably will be able to control the current regime in Damascus if all the indications are right that we see. And therefore, I think also some of Iran using its Shia proxies in the region, destabilizing. So in this regard, I might think that Saudi Arabia will be one of the happiest. And as a result, when Trump comes to power, probably Saudi Arabia will be invited also to join the Abraham Accords that Israel signed with all the GCC countries. And the critical issue is how pragmatic and proactive Turkey will be with regard to Israel, because Turkey has been a vocal supporter of Palestinians, especially Hamas in the region, now collaborating with Israel somehow, willingly or unwillingly, because I think the question has been posed, I believe, whether you are going to be part of the picture. If not, you will be either on the table or on the menu. So Turkey had to make a choice. Turkey is a very big, important power, all the way from China to Germany, Russia to Saudi Arabia. Therefore, in its next door neighborhood, Turkey has to be very active and shaping how things will be evolving. So there is going to be competition between Turkey and Israel in this regard. But Iran and Russia now consider Turkey to be somehow betrayed the arrangement they had, Astana process. And I think Turkey should also pay attention to its relations with Tehran and Moscow, as well as Baghdad, of course. Iraq is important in this regard because Turkey is having difficult times in its relations with both Washington and Brussels. And Iran, Russia, China were the countries where Turkey developed quite close relationship in the past, sort of a assurance that it's not going to be pushed away from the West. So I think we are going to have very interesting and challenging times ahead of us. And so we have to be tuned into it. And every country in the region, including Azerbaijan, will have to watch it and try to be part of the process to benefit whatever opportunities arise, especially in terms of reconstruction, but also risks, how to mitigate risks altogether.
Also, Mr. Mehmet, which countries will be interesting in this Syrian recovery?
Well, I mean, starting with the neighboring countries, because any instability, insecurity, and the risks in Syria will hit Turkey, Iraq, and also Lebanon and the GCC countries. So if you want stability, so we have to promote also recovery, reconstruction, and peace in the region, especially in Syria. But it is a colossal task, and because it's starting from electricity to water, food, roads, ports. Some of them have been destroyed by Israel recently, more than 300 air attacks in different parts of the country. And then also Syria doesn't have a military now, wiped out almost. So I think the new regime in Damascus has to build it from almost scratch. So who is going to pay for that? I'm sure Turkish, Egyptian construction companies can do the business, fix the problems, but it will require tens of billions of dollars, and hopefully Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE perhaps. Then European Union might come in with EBRD and European Investment Bank. US might also come with its USAID and some donations. But for that, you need to have a regime in Damascus where you can trust, where you can work with effectively. So there should be no revenge. There should be no looting and by the regime against the Assad's Alawites. And therefore, I think everybody will be watching how the new regime installed in Damascus will be faring. This will also determine whether there will be willingness to help Damascus and the whole of Syria to reconstruct. Then the Kurdish region, now led by PYD, although, I mean, the Kurds in, as you know, Syria constitute almost 10% of the population. That's about 2 million, 2.3 million. And only 20% of them are under the umbrella of PYD. So when we talk about Kurds in Syria, it's not only PKK extension PYD, but also other Kurds. So Turkey, I think, is making this distinction quite clearly and not recognizing PYD as the legitimate representative of all the Kurds in the country. And if there is going to be a clash of interests for resource sharing or power sharing between Damascus and PYD forces, I think we will be in a long struggle again. But Turkey will not be standing idly because its borders are threatened, and there has to be some solution. It seems that the reason why Blinken, US Secretary of State, is coming to Ankara is exactly related to that, how Ankara could change its position, if possible, that's what US wants, or rechange what the structure of PYD is, so that's not going to be terrorists, it's not threatening Turkish borders, and it will be just a power like in the Iraqi Kurdish regional government, led by Barzani family. So we have to see how it's going to evolve.
Yeah,
definitely. Dust will not settle very quickly. It will take some time.
Well, we'll see who is going to be involved in this new scenario for Syria. Thanks a lot, Mr. Mehmet, for your comments in our program. You can also get the latest news around the clock on our website, AnewZ.tv. Thank you for watching, and also we wish you a good evening ahead.